Hold on to your horses, guys, because one prominent man in the gaming industry is not jumping on that remake train, even though we probably want him to. This is a cow's opinion, and happy 4th of July, guys. Can't guarantee I will produce a video tomorrow because that's not pre-recorded for my Let's Play, because honestly, I can't guarantee there's going to be any gaming news, but I hope you guys all have a wonderful 4th of July. Get some burgers. There's not really any... Well, there's baseball, I think. Do something fun with your families and grill, because today I want to talk about something almost as important as all the hot dogs that will shove down my gullet tomorrow. Sakaguchi does not want to remake some of his games, actually. Now, if you don't know who he is, Hironobu Sakaguchi is the granddaddy of Final Fantasy. And because I might not be pronouncing his name fully right, I'm going to call him Big Papa Final Fantasy. So Big Papa said that he recently doesn't want to remake his games. He left the company over 20 years ago after 2 decades. He created Final Fantasy, he's worked on tons of stuff, and he has recently teamed up with a Japanese publisher again to bring mobile RPG Fantasian to consoles. As you know, it's the console port of the Apple Arcade game, which is great because now people actually get to play it. But in his interview with Bloomberg, he said that he doesn't want to work on Final Fantasy again because he's, in his own words, switched to a consumer rather than a creator. Now, I almost live in Final Fantasy XIV, the very successful MMO. He said later, adding, if I take on the Final Fantasy brand again, I don't know if I'll be able to generally enjoy Final Fantasy XIV as much. So he's just more interested now that he's older and has made his bones and everything. He doesn't want to be in charge. Stupid. Next time I'll just bring up the Bloomberg article. These pop-ups are killing us. But ignore my stupidity and my lack of production value, guys. Because he's just being like anyone would. He wants to play Final Fantasy, not make it. He also reiterated comments that he told Video Games Chronicle, and thank you to Tom Ivan for writing, that back in 2021, he repeated today what he told them then. He has no desire to remaster older Mistwalker games like Lost Odyssey and Blue Dragon. If you don't know what those are, Lost Odyssey and Blue Dragon were part of this big push to help the Xbox have more games because, well, let's be honest, the Xbox doesn't do well in Japan, partially because they don't have as many games that interest the Japanese market. And let's be honest, Big Daddy Sony up until recently paid Japanese studios to not release on Xbox. It's been found out, and in fact, it was one of the things that some senators brought up during the Xbox trying to acquire Activision Blizzard, and were talking to Square Enix about, which may or may not have influenced Square Enix no longer doing this practice. But interesting enough, he did say there was a game he wanted to bring back. The mobile strategy game Terra Battle, released in 2014 but no longer playable. Now he's 61 years old and he says he might retire after he's make Fantasia, but he's working on something new with Mistwalker, which recently filed a trademark for Fantasian Dark Edge. So it's cool that he's still involved with Mistwalker Studios. They've made some pretty good games. I mean, they're not on the level of Final Fantasy XVI, but it's a younger studio. And look, I liked Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey. I can understand why it wasn't for everybody, but I did play and love them. And if you're wondering, well, what the hell is the game that he wants? Here is Mistwalker's trailer for Terra Battle for 2.0. So I've muted the sound so we don't get copyright struck. And here are just, this is what you would do. You would deploy, and you would move characters around and yeah. That's not really a thing. You would deploy, and everybody moved on this grid in this kind of weird weird time. It was weird time, but it was also real time. And you can see it was kind of interesting. Much different than most mobile games that you get. But so, look, I think Sakaguchi's really great. This is the man who gave us Final Fantasy. Dragon Quest was the game that gave us our first Japanese role-playing game. really inspired by the North American PC role-playing games. They were trying to simplify it and get it onto a console, and they achieved that with the Nintendo Entertainment System. And then Sakaguchi, if you don't know the answer, before it was Square Enix, it was Squaresoft, and they were not having a lot of economic success. And so Sakaguchi and other guys at Square and Soft, right there, not Square Enix, it was Squaresoft back in the 80s, made Final Fantasy. They put all of the passion and skill and everything they could into that game, and they called it Final Fantasy because honestly, if the game failed, it was the end of the studio. It was literally possibly their final fantasy. Now, thankfully, we've had 16 great Final Fantasy games. Maybe you think some of them are bad, but 16 Final Fantasy games, countless spin-offs and other stuff from them, and as well as all the other stuff Squaresoft made. Then they merged with Enix, and now we have Square Enix, and both Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy under the same roof. Look, if the guy wants to make games, I think it's cool. And if he wants to focus on simpler, more mobile games, he is working on something new with Mistwalker, I say, let him. Let the man have his passion. He's done so much. He's 61 years old. He deserves to have a good time. And one other thing that this article may remember is that recently, unfortunately, Square Enix has reported that there is now a delay in Final Fantasy XII. We've reported on this channel multiple times that there have been problems with the development of Dragon Quest XII and possibly with the development of Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake. In fact, at one point, they replaced the head of the Dragon Quest brand in Square Enix with somebody else. And now, recently, it's come out that 12 is going to be a bit delayed, and they have no ETA when it might be done. There was a weird rumor I saw that they were trying to go more action-y RPG with it. There was that Square Enix, let me see if I can find it. So recently, the Adventures of Dai spin-off of like an old manga that recently had an anime come out. And it doesn't look terrible. But here are the scores. 43% of the 244 here on the North American Steam page say it was positive. It's already pretty heavily discounted, even though it only came out in October. And I believe for physical editions, they said that they had sold a couple of dozen in North America. Not hundreds or thousands, a couple of dozen. So it's not really doing super great. And that's unfortunate because I love Dragon Quest, but yeah. So there's a rumor going around, and I can't find. I'm not going to show you the rumor because I cannot find an actual source that I consider reputable. But there is some talk on certain Reddit forums, certain Twitter blogs, certain other things that they were going to make Dragon Quest 12 more action RPG like Infinity Strash. And because that game did not really click anywhere near what they thought, they're having to go back to the drawing board and give you a more traditional Dragon Quest 12. But I can't comment on that much because, other than I think that that's right. The main line should stay kind of turn-basedy, and you should do stuff like this spin-off to try other things, because this didn't work very well. And since it didn't sell well, it's probably not a good idea to make this more action RPG. But guys, let me know in the comments what you think. Are you happy to get more from Mistwalker Studio? Do you actually want a Blue Dragon or Lost Odyssey remake or remaster? Did you play Infinity Strash? Or do you have something cool you want to do for the 4th of July? This page is for you. Let me know down in the comments below. And you know what you can always do. You can play more games. Because games are awesome. You deserve awesome. And for the love of God, thank goodness that Dragon Quest III is finally coming out because I really want to play it. I'll see you next time! Catchphrase!